Hello, my name is Courtney Bowman. I'm a graduate student at Kansas State University in the Agriculture Communications program. Today we will be looking at the expectancy violation theory. We will explore what the theory is, its history, its importance, and how it can be utilized. So, what is the expectancy violation theory? The expectancy violation theory, or EVT, is a communication theory which tries to explain the unexpected behaviors of human beings while interacting. The theory is based on the uncertainty reduction theory, where the vagueness on behaviors of others is reduced through interaction. Why is EVT relevant? It provides a way to link behavior and cognitions. It is one of the few communication theories that offers us a better understanding of our need for both other people and personal space. EVT originally focused on exploring nonverbal communication, although later applications of the theory have centered on verbal messages. Although nonverbal communication is a very broad area, the theorist Judy Burgoon, who is behind EVT, has made efforts to focus many of her investigations on personal space. Finally, EVT is a testable theory. Testability requires that theorists be specific in their concepts. In fact, Burgoon is one of the few theorists who clearly defines her terms before embarking on a theoretical path. In doing so, she has presented a clear and testable foundation from which future researchers might draw and replicate the test. As I mentioned in the last slide, Judy Burgoon is the theorist behind the expectancy violation theory. Burgoon received her PhD from West Virginia, where she studied communication and educational psychology. Burgoon's research focuses on nonverbal communication, interpersonal communication, and small group communication. She specializes in mass media and new communication and informational technologies as they relate to deception, credibility, persuasion, argumentation, and unwillingness to communicate. Burgoon published EVT in A Communication Model of Personal Space Violation in 1978. There are three core concepts behind EVT: expectancy, communicator reward valence, and violation valence. Expectancy refers to what an individual anticipates will happen in a given situation. Expectancy is similar to the idea of social norms and is based on three primary factors, which are context, relationship, and communicator's characteristics. Communicator reward valence is an evaluation you make about the person who committed the violation. Specifically, does this person have the ability to reward or punish you in the future? Violation valence is the positive or negative evaluation you make about a behavior that you did not anticipate. After breaking down the three core concepts, it becomes possible to make rather specific predictions about whether the individual who perceived the violation will reciprocate or compensate the behavior in question. This chart shows the breakdown of how predictions are possible. The specific communication outcomes that were examined in the original publication of EVT were recall, attraction towards the initiator, and perceived credibility of the initiator. These were selected as representatives of the concepts of reward, punishment, and communication outcomes. The 5 hypotheses that were tested in the original publication of EVT were: 1. Initiators who provide positive feedback will produce higher recall and be rated higher on attraction and credibility than initiators who provide negative feedback. 2. The effects of distance on recall, attraction, and credibility are dependent on the nature of the feedback given by the initiator. 3. Recall, attraction, and credibility are lower beyond the threat threshold than at normative distance. 4. For an initiator giving positive feedback, the relationship between distance and recall, attraction, and credibility is curvilinear, such that a near distance short of the threat threshold will produce the most positive effects. And lastly, for an initiator giving negative feedback, the relationship between distance and recall, attraction, and credibility is curvilinear, such that distances at or slightly further than the norm will produce the most positive effects. In the original publication of EVT, Hypothesis 1 was supported, and Hypothesis 4 and 5 were partially supported. They demonstrate that violations of personal space expectations can influence communication outcomes. Future research should focus on different operationals of reward and different communication outcomes so that the breadth of the model's explanatory power can be determined. There are two key viewpoints that I took away from Burgoon's original publication of EVT. The first one being that humans are social species that need to affiliate with other members of the species. At the same time, humans cannot tolerate extended physical contact with or excessive proximity to other members of our species. We have a need for some degree of space from others. Burgoon's theory started with her studying proxemics in grad school at Illinois State University. The term proxemics was coined by researcher Edward Hull during the 1950s and 1960s and has to do with the study of our use of space and how various differences in that use can make us feel more relaxed or anxious. There are 4 categories of space that include intimate, which is usually used by people who are close to us, which on the chart you can see is 0 to 1.5 feet away from us. The second is personal space, which is usually acceptable for friends or relatives, and it is usually 1.5 to 4 feet away. Social is used for acquaintances or unfamiliar people, with them standing 4 to 12 feet away from us. And public is used for lectures and public presentations to a group, with people standing 12 feet or more away from us. So the second key point for EVT is affiliation. According to Burgoon, the desire for affiliation may be produced by the presence of rewards in the communication context. The rewards might be biological in nature, or they could be socially reinforced rewards. Without this or some similar assumption, it would be difficult to predict when a person would respond positively and when negatively to various distances adopted by others, because the relative strengths of the affiliative and personal space needs could not be estimated. This goes back to the chart that we looked at earlier, where you can move positively or negatively from what was the reinforced communication. EVT can be used in a variety of fields that deal with intercommunications, whether nonverbal or verbal. Examples include education, healthcare, social media, sociology, psychology, retail, and customer service disciplines. There are a few criticisms of EVT that I could find. Concerns include that since it is a scientific theory, only one answer is correct. Self-perceptions of arousal are not valid measures. Thirdly, it does not indicate whether communicator or behavior balance is more important. And lastly, expectancy violations vary in frequency, seriousness, and balance. Even though there are a few criticisms to the theory that we just discussed, EVT is still being used today. We will look at 2 examples of how EVT is being utilized. The examples are not specifically for agriculture, but I believe that EVT can be used in the agriculture field in similar types of situations, which I will discuss at the end of each case study. The first case study we'll look at is the social norms of expectancy violation theories, assessing the effectiveness of health communication campaigns, which was published in 2004. The researchers of this study looked at college students' processing of alcohol, smoking, and exercise social norms messages, and related effects on judgment, attitudes toward one's own behavior, and attitudes toward undergraduates' behaviors were examined using social norms marketing and expectancy violation theory. The researchers said that EVT predicts that positive and negative violations led to different behaviors. If a positive violation occurs, in this case, the message indicated that more people than expected think drinking to get drunk is not cool, then receivers should move in the direction advocated by the source of the message. This result is in accordance with the predictions of social norms. However, if a negative violation occurs, for example, the message indicates that fewer people than expected think drinking to get drunk is not cool, receivers should experience either no change or change in the direction opposite of that advocated by the source, a result in discord with predictions of social norms. In this research, data was consistent with EVT predictions of positive violations when measuring judgment change. In the majority of cases, there was only a slight attitude change regarding one's own behavior or undergraduate behavior as a result of receiving the message. The researchers stated it is possible that EVT is limited in scope and cannot predict or explain violations of judgment as it does language and nonverbal behaviors. This research extended the study of efforts of social norms messages on healthy behaviors and tested both attitudinal and behavior social norm messages. Key findings included that social norm messages may work to change judgments, but do not result in consistent attitude change, that the process of judgment change functions similarly across message topics as well as message types, that judgment change does not appear to be the main cause for attitude change upon receipt of social norm messages. And lastly, a message-based expectancy violation does not function in the same way as a violated behavior expectation. Although this case study looked at EVT and health communications, I believe that the concept of social norms and EVT can easily be translated to relate to agriculture communications and consumers. Researchers could look at positive and negative violations when it comes to judgment change on the environmental or agriculture extension work, for example. The second case study is Social Media and Communication Outcomes in Higher Education, conducted by Shelley Lane at the University of Texas in 2013. This literature review demonstrates that the digital divide lacks experimental support and that present research about influence of social media and Twitter on communication outcomes often lacks a theoretical base. Nonetheless, the researcher suggests that faculty should consider integrating social media in their courses, as early research suggests that Facebook and Twitter can enhance student perceptions of the instructor's credibility and immediacy. The researcher also states that EVT suggests that behaviors are positively and negatively balanced, and that the violation balance occurs when observers interpret the behavior as either positive or negative. For example, if a well-liked and highly regarded professor meets the student's expectations by publicly commending an oral report, the student's expectations are met. If the instructor criticizes the oral report and embarrasses the student, the instructor has committed a negative violation. Expectancies refer to behavioral patterns associated with specific individuals that are considered appropriate, desired, and/or preferred. For example, students may expect their professors to be knowledgeable about a particular topic, honest when answering questions, and caring when discussing grades. Expectancy violations occur when individuals deviate from appropriate behavior to the extent that the deviation is noticeable to others, such as the faculty member negatively responding to a student's presentation. Perceived expectancy violations may occur if a professor appears not to know about a particular topic, doesn't answer questions honestly, or seems not to care about the student's grades. The researcher states that faculty should seriously consider integrating social media into higher education courses because, as I mentioned before, research shows that Facebook and Twitter may promote students' perceptions of instructor credibility and increase student perceptions of the instructor. However, millennial generation students cannot automatically be assumed to be digital natives. Therefore, in order to successfully incorporate Facebook and Twitter into university and colleges courses, students must have access, be self-disciplined, motivated, and willing to commit time to online activity, work collaboratively, and believe learning can happen anywhere at any time. So again, this case study doesn't necessarily take place using an agriculture topic, but I can easily see the word higher education being switched out with agriculture, and the word students being switched out with consumers. Using EVT as a theoretical base, researchers could look how the use of social media plays into the credibility of agriculture campaigns. Although I did not find any current case studies utilizing EVT in agriculture, as I stated before in the case studies, I believe that the theory could be used within the field for credibility, education, media perceptions, social media, and social norms. This concludes my presentation on the expectancy violation theory. Here are a list of my references used throughout this presentation. If you have any questions regarding this presentation, please do not hesitate to contact me at the listed email address. Thank you.